Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Oxnard City Council Public Works and Transportation Committee, July 13th, 8:30. I'd like to read a statement. This meeting is held pursuant to the State Emergency Services Act, the Governor's Emergency Declaration, and the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20 to allow members of the City Council or staff to participate via teleconference. As a precautionary measure to help slow the spread of COVID-19, the City Council facilities are temporarily closed to the public. The public is encouraged to view the meeting from home on the city's website at oxnard.org/city-meetings, or Spectrum Channel 10, or Frontier Channel 35, or YouTube at youtube.com/Oxnard News. Video recordings are typically available online immediately following the meetings. Please see the link to the Measure M pre-recorded presentation video for each agenda item. The public may provide comments to the City Council via email at cityclerk@oxnard.org no later than 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Please identify the committee name, meeting date, and agenda item in the email subject line. A telephone option for public comments is also available at this time. Requests to speak must be submitted no later than 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Use the form on the city's website to submit your request at oxnard.org/city-meetings, or call the city clerk's office at 805-385-7803, or email your request to cityclerk@oxnard.org. The city has filed pre-election and post-election lawsuits regarding the validity of Measure M. The judge has not yet ruled on the legal sufficiency of Measure M, so there will be no presentations at this meeting. Madam Clerk, may you take the roll and the question of posting of the agenda? When it comes to the flag salute, I'd like to have Mr. Rajat Brahmangam please lead in the flag salute.
Member Lopez.
Here.
Member Zaragoza.
Here.
Chair Perello.
Here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted in the City Hall Bulletin Board on July 8th, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Baumgarten, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Please rise. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance
To the
to
flag
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We have several public speakers tonight. I do not know if we have a speaker on items not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we?
Chair Perello, no, we do not have any speakers on items not on the agenda.
Okay. For the public's information, the committee did receive correspondence from Mr. Roger Poirier, Carolyn Mullen, Craig Rosen, Robert Park, Steve Nash, and there was a question from Mr. Martin Glack. And we do have speakers tonight on items on the agenda, specific agendas: Francine Castanon, Carolyn Mullen, Armando Delgado, and Alicia Parcell. And we'll call them at that time of the meeting. Can we move now to consent agenda? And the item is City Clerk Department approval of minutes. And the recommendation is the Public Works and Transportation Committee approve the minutes for February 23rd, 2021, March 9th, 2021, March 23rd, 2021, and April 13th, 2021, the regular meetings as presented. Do we have any questions or concerns or additions or subtractions on the minutes? Committee members?
Nope.
No. Do we have any recommendations?
So moved.
Second.
A roll call, Madam Clerk?
Member Lopez.
Yes.
Member Zaragoza.
Yes.
Chair Perello.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
And thank you, Madam Clerk, for getting this many minutes done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Perrello.
Moving on to item D, reports. D1, City Manager's Department. Sale of the Oxnard Historic Park. Beg your pardon? Sale of the Oxnard Historic Farm Park. The recommendation that the city, beg your pardon, sorry. That the recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommends that the City Council, number one, conduct a public hearing and consider the summary report prepared pursuant to California Government Code Section 52201. Number two, adopt a resolution and approve a purchase and sale agreement number A-8295 between the City of Oxnard and the Oxnard Historic Farm Park Foundation for the sale of the Gottfried Mulhart / Albert Filer Farm Site Farm Park. And number three, approve the attached budget appropriation recognizing the revenue from the sale of the farm park. There was a presentation, but due to Measure M at this time, it is not available. And do we have any comments or concerns from members of the committee? I do not see a item for comment on this from the public.
No, none.
No
Any-
public comments on this item, Chair Perrello.
Okay, thank you. Mayor or Councilmember Lopez, do you have any comments or concerns?
No, I don't, sir. No.
Okay. Madam Lopez?
None on my end, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of questions. Specifically in this item, there is a statement that says to obtain, they must obtain a state authorization for historic. And I do not find that wording in the actual document that's going to be signed off on. It seems like it's an attachment. Is there a guarantee? I have a question. Is there any guarantee to put my mind at rest that this will be an actual in the document, that they will be held accountable to make sure that they get this from the state? And the second thing, is there a timeline that they must do this?
Thank you, Chair Perrello, members of the committee, Adam Smith, City Manager's Office. Yes, it is, the foundation is to obtain the landmark status. There isn't a set out timeline to get that status, but nonetheless, it is in the agreement.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm in support of this, but I just want to make a couple of statements here.
Madam Chair, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mayor.
can I ask a question? Is that a subject to, or is it's a given? Is that a subject to the sale, subject to the apparent, approval by the state?
No,
It's not, okay, thank you.
Mr. Smith, can you answer that? Or the city attorney?
Well, thank you, committee member. Is the question, does the state have to sign off on the agreement? Is that the
Right,
question?
that would
yeah.
be subject to, yes.
Correct, yes. After the public hearing that's scheduled, after the outcome of this meeting, staff sends the executed resolution up to Sacramento for the Department of Housing and Community Development, their approval. They can take up to 30 days to approve.
Okay, thank you. Mhm.
Thank you. The point that I wanted to make for the public and the rest of the council, I have had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Mulhart and the city manager. This has been discussed in the past. There was an agreement approved in 2004 where there was supposed to be a payment of $1 a year for this facility to the city. But due to the mismanagement, there had been little oversight, but from the city staff and the foundation in the operations. And so from 2004 to basically 2007 to 19, there had been no correct handling of this method. 2019, there was a decision made by the council to sell the park. And the reason I asked that there is a requirement in the actual document that they get the state approval for the designation as a historical thing. I don't want this to fall through the cracks like it did before, because we look like very foolish city when we let somebody get away without paying us for 12 bucks for a number of 12 years, $1 a year. And through no fault of any specific person, but just one of those things about past practices that the city no longer is doing. We want to make sure that we have that. Mr. Smith assures me that it's in the document. I'm satisfied. Are there any other questions by the committee?
Chair Perrello, we're looking through the resolution, but just to be sure if this is going to move forward, if we can have a amendment proposed by the council to ensure that we include documentation that they seek the state designation. There is not a guarantee that they will get the state designation, which goes to the mayor's question is if the sale is contingent upon the
That's
state designation. They have a local designation. But Mr. Smith, maybe you can clarify the local in that process and if the actual sale is tied at all to the requirement that they actually obtain state historic designation versus seeking that designation.
Thank you, Ms. Golden. Yes, the property as it stands right now is a county historic landmark. What the sale, one of the contingencies on the sale is that the Farm Park Foundation obtain state of California landmark status. But that's a process that takes time. And so we're not tying it to executing the actual sale agreement. So after that would go final, they would, in them going through their sweat equity and grant fundraising and submitting their nonprofit reports to the city, another contingency would also be obtaining state of California landmark status.
So, Mr. Chair, so it's not subject to the property sale then?
No, it's not. But
Okay.
my concern is this, after the property sale, there are no, as I read this, as I read it, and I could be wrong, but the way I read it in the actual documentation where they have the mayor and the foundation sign off, I did not see those wordings. It's in the staff report and it's in a summary attached to the staff report. It says foundation to obtain state of California landmark status. And in the second area under something called summary report, it states the foundation to obtain state of California landmark status. The significance of that is this is a historic thing in the county. But if it becomes a historic thing on the state, it gets on a map. When people travel through coming down 101, there's a state farm park here. Maybe we want to go see it. Maybe it brings something to the city. Maybe they buy a hamburger. Maybe they spend the night. Maybe they buy some gasoline. It all helps the city. But the only way we get it to help the city is if it gets on these maps. And I do have a burr on the side. I come from an ag background. I want to make sure that everybody's feet are held to the fire, the city and the foundation, that they get this done. So if it requires an amendment, I'd like to make that amendment to this item, that this be put in the document. There is not a timeline, but if they don't get it done, there is the consideration that the property revert back to the city. So that would, I think, would be a fire under their stance to make them get it done. And it's something the city shouldn't have to do. I don't know how my rest of my council member colleagues feel about that.
So go ahead.
So Chair Perrello, one thing on, so we can't require the state give them the designation. All signs point to they meet the criteria for that. So in terms of that reversionary criteria that we're speaking about, that it would come back, staff and our conversations with the Mulhart property or the Mulhart owner would be more so that they actually move forward and apply and seek and do everything possible to get the state designation. But the county designation is significant and is already recorded on the property, and that alone allows for this public use, which is really what we are hoping for the property, that it's always open to the public for this specific use. Going to the state level ensures that further, but we aren't looking to have it revert if they can't obtain that. What we are looking for is that they do everything to apply for that, to go through that process. We do think that it is a good idea to add language to the document, as you pointed out, that requires them to go through that process. And our attorneys can help us draft that before that goes forward to the full council, if that's the recommendation of this committee.
So
Can I ask Mr. Fisher, do you feel comfortable with that?
Hi, this is Paul Early, Assistant City Attorney.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Mr. Early.
that's
Sorry.
okay. Yes, we were looking over this very carefully as we were having this discussion, and I completely agree with Ms. Golden's assessment of this. We can add language that they will take all reasonable steps to apply and endeavor to apply within certain timelines. And just to bolster this a little bit more, the grant deed that's proposed with this does have restrictions on it and does require them to maintain it as a county landmark. So even if the state were to come back and decline it for some reason, they are still required to maintain it as a county landmark at all times.
Okay, then if that's the way it is. Okay, do we have a, I withdraw my request for an amendment then. Do we have a recommendation on this matter?
We
So
don't
move,
recommend it
move
that way.
approval.
I'll second that, Chair, and I believe that would be with the recommendation for the state landmark status.
But won't be subject to then.
It will be subject to them seeking it, not
Seeking
subject,
on it, but not for the land sale. Okay,
not for the actual
Okay, that-
granting of it.
that's important to understand. Okay, thank you.
And
And
that
we
will
can-
actually be, and that will actually be put in the document that we're signing off and voting at the council, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments?
No.
The only other comment I could say is I think this is going to be a win-win for both parties. Madam Clerk, can you take the roll, please?
Member Zaragoza,
Yes.
Chair Perrello,
Yes,
Member Lopez.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
thank you. The next item is the Public Works Department. The subject, approval of purchase order number 8164 with VacCon Incorporated for a new sewer cleaning vehicle. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute purchase order number 8164 with VacCon Incorporated for the purchase of a new VacCon sewer cleaning combination truck model VPD 421-1HE/1300 mounted on a Freightliner 114 SD truck chassis in the amount of $558,637.71. There is a video presentation, but due to Measure M and the litigation, it is not available at this time. It was available previous. And I do not have any public comments on this item. Unless something is new come in, Madam Clerk.
Chair Perrello, we do not have public comment on this item. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions of the committee of staff? I see Mr. Trevino available here.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead. Mayor.
I think this VacCon unit is really important. It's important because if we need to clean our sewer lines, they have a video that goes with it that cleans out our sewer lines. It's a 2003 and it's 109,000 miles, and it's an item that's under the utilities. So I think it's important that we replace this item, because if you have a sewer blockage, you need something that's reliable. And that my understanding has been in the shop quite a bit too. So I would make, subject to other comments, I make a motion to approve.
Do you have any comments, Madam Lopez?
No questions or comments on my end. I would second a member Zaragoza's motion.
Okay, I'd just like to bring up a point and offer Mr. Trevino an opportunity to comment if you'd like to say anything about this. I found that one thing in there, the mileage, I could live with the mileage and I could live with that. But when it's stated in the staff report that the parts are getting extremely hard to find and no longer made, that was a big push for me. You'd have to support it. You got to have something you can fix. Do you have any comments or any input, Mr. Trevino? Who's the
No,
wastewater
sir.
manager for our city?
Yeah, Ray Trevino, wastewater collections manager. No, I have no comment on that.
Okay. Any final comments from the committee? Other than that, we'll take a roll call vote. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Member Lopez,
Yes.
Member Zaragoza,
Yes.
Chair Perrello.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
thank you thank you. Moving to item number 3. Public Works Department again, subject approved LS-1 option E agreement A-8356 with Southern California Edison to replace high-pressure sodium vapor streetlights with light emitting diode streetlights citywide. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute LS-1 option E agreement A-8356 with Southern California Edison for a term of 20 years to replace SCE-owned streetlights from high-pressure sodium vapor, HPSV, the abbreviation, to light-emitting diodes, LED is abbreviation, with no out-of-pocket cost to the city. There was a presentation, but due to Measure M and litigation, it is not available at this time. It is available for the public to see. Do we have any? I believe we do have comments on this from public speakers. Do you recall them now, Madam Clerk?
Yes, one moment, please.
Thank you. I think it's Miss Francine Castanon.
Francine Castanon.
I'm sorry, Chair. Ms. Francine Castanon is not available at this time.
Okay, if she comes on before this item is finished, we'll give her a shot at talking. Do the committee have any questions of staff?
Well, Mr. Chair, I,
Go ahead,
Mr.
Mayor.
Chair, well, I thank you. The conversion, I think, is going to save us quite a bit of dollars. It looks like almost $180,000 annually. And this is at no additional cost to the city. And of course, one of the things that over the 20-year period is going to, save us quite a few dollars, by having the LED lights, and we have what about 9,000 plus, lights that we have to change. But I think it's a good program. Thank you.
Councilmember Lopez, do you have anything?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I want to thank Mr. Yanez for the presentation. Just want to clarify in terms of, what this item means is replacing these street lights that are found. I mean, it's 9,000, over 9,677 street lights throughout the city. So Mr. Yanez, can you just explain, does this cover essentially all of the street lights in the city? What does it look like? What can we expect? What can residents expect throughout the city?
Committee members, VNA and committee chair, the street lights that we're converting to LED are the ones you see that have a pole and a mast arm. Most mast arms have a single light or a double. Those are the ones that belong to Edison. Our ornamental lighting, such as in downtown and other parts in the city, will not be converted. We will have to do that on our own. These street lights will be converted from arterials to neighborhoods, and we're working with internal staff along with PD to make sure that we install the right Kelvin of these lights, 3,000 or 4,000 in our areas of our community.
Thank you, Mr. Yanez. And I, realize with a lot of the street lights, especially in our older parts of the city, this will be a major and significant improvement in the visibility in so many neighborhoods where we find a lot of very dark spots. And, as we know, lighting helps improve the public safety and the safety in our community. So I think this is a great step forward for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions on this. And again, thank you very much for the video presentation. When you mentioned, Mr. Yanez, that there's going to be a certain number of streetlights replaced, can we feel comfortable that Edison, and I ask this as a personal bias, with PG&E and Edison and rate structures and fires and all things going on, I want to make sure that we watch Edison and we make sure we get what we deserve. Is there a system by where the city of Oxnard or its residents can tell they are working from one end of the city to the other and all the lights will be replaced going in a specific direction? Or do they jump around and change lights? And then it would be very difficult to find out if everything has been done.
Committee Chair Perrello, once we get into the queue, which after City Council approves this option E agreement, we will then begin to work with Southern California Edison on the game plan of where they will attack areas of the city. Once I get that information, I'll be able to share that with our public information officer and with the community where we will be starting so they can see the progress of the streetlights being installed and converted to LED.
And the other thing is these new lights will have more illumination on the street, better visibility for the public. Is that's the whole less that and the cost savings are the two main reasons for doing this, correct?
That is correct. The LED will have a brighter white color versus the sodium vapor lights, which is kind of a yellowish tint. But we actually see a clearer light on our arterial and residential streets.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, has Ms. Castanon been able to get a hold of?
No, not at the moment, Chair Perrello, not available.
Okay, I will share this. Months, probably maybe a year and a half ago, had a discussion with Ms. Francine Castanon, very active member of the community. She talked about certain areas of the city that were darker than others, and I drove into those areas and I found her to be factual. So I hope, and I'm not speaking for the council, I'm speaking as one council member on a 7-member board. I hope that when we do this, we start towards the south end of town and work our way north. And the reason being the south end of town, is that she pointed out to me, was much darker than other areas of our community. I don't know how the other council members feel about that, but that's just something I wanted to add. And
Mr. Chair, I think it's important.
Go
also,
ahead, Mayor.
One of the things that things going to happen too is going to save us a lot of money too in the process.
Of course.
That's important. Thank you.
Okay. Any final comments, Ms. Lopez?
No, Chair, I think you covered it, and I think that's, is definitely a point that if that was a point that was conveyed by Ms. Castanon to you as well, I think that's something that's very noticeable by many residents, particularly in South Oxnard. Being a resident of the Redwood neighborhood, I can definitely see that this will be a major improvement to all our neighborhoods throughout the city.
Yeah, I will add that when she first told me it was in the fall part of the year, and I'm driving down from, say, 5 Points, taking Sabres on down, going to the neighborhood she was talking, it seemed to get darker and darker. And she nailed it. Do we have a motion on this item?
I'll move approval, Chair.
Second.
Roll call, Madam Clerk?
Chair Perrello,
Yes.
Member Lopez,
Yes.
Member Zaragoza.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you very much, staff. Moving on to item 4. This is the City Manager's Department. The subject, Preliminary American Rescue Plan Act Investment Ideas. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee began the discussion about American Rescue Plan Act preliminary investment ideas and forward discussion outcomes to the City Council for further deliberation. We have, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, I received comments. I believe all council members and all committees received comments written from Mr. Portier, Ms. Mullen, Craig Rosen, Roger Park, Steve Nash, and there was a request about addressing the council from Mr. Martin Glatt. I don't see one here. And we do have public speakers, Carolyn Mullen, Armando Delgado, and Alicia Parcell. Unless there is a technical question from the committee of staff, we'll move to the public comments. Do we have any technical questions from committee to staff? No. Okay. Madam Clerk, can you see if we get the public speakers up?
Yes, Chair Perrello.
Thank you.
Ms. Carolyn Mullen is not available. However, we do have Armando Delgado on the line.
Okay. Go ahead.
Armando Delgado, you may unmute by pressing *6.
Good evening, Chairman, committee members and staff. Can you guys hear me well?
Yes, Armando.
Okay. So, the Secretary of Treasury is issuing this interim final rule to implement the coronavirus state fiscal and recovery fund and the coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund. Um, I guess what we're trying to get at is the carpenters take a deep appreciation for the money coming in. I know it means jobs and recovery of businesses all throughout Southern California, the nation, specifically here in Oxnard. So here we are tonight. Now we completely understand the use of $4.5 million in helping essential personnel. Trust me when I say it was difficult going to work every day with thousands of tradesmen who didn't know if we were going to come out of this. But we as a city are being assisted with 59.5 million in American Rescue Plan funds. So follow me for a second. On page 26802 of the Federal Register, volume 86, number 93, that came out Monday, May 17th, 2021. Rules and regulations, section D, concerning investments in infrastructure. Now I know $59 million may not all be spent on infrastructure, but some of it will be. So there's language that says to assist the meeting the critical need for investments and improvements to existing infrastructure, water, sewer, and broadband. The fiscal recovery funds will provide funds to the state, local, and tribal governments to make necessary investment in these sectors. But the most important thing that I want to address tonight is something that we've been talking about for a long time. So let me read to you for a second, just to remind you and let everybody know that we are paying attention. And we want to make it clear that it is important that necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure be carried out in ways that produce high quality infrastructure, avert disruptive and costly delays, and promote efficiency. The Treasury encourages recipients to ensure that water, sewer, and broadband projects use strong labor standards, including project labor agreements and community benefit agreements
40 seconds.
wages at or above the prevailing wage rate, and include local hire provisions, not only to promote effective and efficient delivery of high quality infrastructure projects, but also to support the economic recovery through strong employment opportunities for workers. Using these practices in construction projects may help ensure a reliable supply of skilled labor and would minimize disruptions such as those associated with labor disputes and workplace injuries. The Federal Registry is letting you know that you have rules and regulations on how to spend this money. And for the longest time now, we've been talking about community workforce agreements, labor agreements, prevailing wages, transparencies.
Your time is up.
Thank you for sharing your comments, Mr. Delgado. The next speaker, I believe, is Alicia Purcell.
Alicia Purcell.
Okay, I'm here.
Hi, you have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. This is an unusual situation in which the same subject is before all three of tonight's committees. So I'm going to take the unusual step of repeating my brief comments so that I get to speak to all the council members. I want to remind the council members where this pile of money came from. It's not free money. The federal government didn't have this money available either. It's all borrowing against future generations with reckless debt. Your grandchildren will still be paying for the debt for this spending. Would you borrow from your grandchildren just to give a one-time bonus to current city employees, as one of the proposals is? We're talking about people who did not lose their jobs during the pandemic, who still received their paychecks and pension contributions during the pandemic. So if you're going to borrow from future generations, don't use it just to put in your pockets today or for other short-lived benefits that only benefit a small group of people. Use it for assets with very long life that benefit nearly everyone in the city, so that people bearing this debt burden in the future might at least see some benefit out of it. There's some really important details that I did not see in the packet about the potential use of $2 million for payout to city employees. There was no indication of whether it's being proposed to give $2 million to one employee on one extreme option, or if it's proposed to spread it across 1,500 employees or to some other subset in between. but there's a big difference in between those extreme options. So more information is needed. If it's proposed to give to a subset of the employees, the public should get to see a listing of which job titles the city believes qualify and what amount is proposed for each person with that job title so that we can compare it to the federal criteria for the proper use of the funds. I've asked this question at the 2 earlier committee meetings tonight, and seems that should be something that had to have been known before you put a dollar amount onto the idea to list it in the packet. So it should be information which is readily available to answer my question about how it's proposed to be spread across how many people. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and sharing, Ms. Patel. Madam Clerk, are there any other speakers?
We do not have any additional public comment on this item, Chair Perello.
Okay, thank you. I would just like to take a minute here. I did hear the previous committee meetings, and Ms. Purcell did accurately state what she said at the previous committee meetings. But I assure Ms. Purcell, I'll resign from this council. I'll quit this council if $2 million goes to one person. I cannot imagine any other council member not voluntarily doing the same. Ms. Purcell, you're a very smart, intelligent woman, but you have a way of making people's minds play tricks. Sharing that with you, Ms. Purcell. Do we have any comments from the committee? We're looking for input. We're
Chair
looking for
Perello,
input.
Before we
ahead.
turn it over to the council, would you mind,
That's
since
right.
the city manager's not here this evening, if I can just make a few comments to help frame the discussion before we go into the 3 committee members' comments on this?
Please do. And this
Okay.
is the assistant city manager speaking.
Thank you. So just as a few notes of interest before we go into the council deliberations and debates and ideas on this, as a reminder from what you heard, both the community and those tuning in, and the council here this evening from the city manager and his Measure M video, as well as within the staff report, just want to highlight a few items. First, we want to recognize the positive discussion that this is and the positive opportunity that this is for our community. This was unexpected and additive funding that we have to help our community recover from the pandemic. Second, with Oxnard's $59 million, it's intended to help our local government recover from the pandemic. And just a reminder of all the other funding sources that have already been available or expected to be available for other sectors within the economy. And again, just the focus on the local government's recovery here. Third, a reminder that this is one-time funding, so we're looking for spending it on one-time expenses. Fourth, more of a philosophical discussion for the council about should this money be spent on couple large investments or spread over the many needs of our community. And as indicated in the city manager's Measure M video, his recommendation is obviously the latter on multiple projects spread throughout the community, which is why the list is so exhaustive that's before you this evening and will continue to be discussed at future meetings. Fifth, should we look at investments that not only aid local government recovery from the pandemic, but also have the ability to provide improvements and growth for the future of the city? So more looking at the return on investment of some of these projects. And finally, just an understanding that this is a very preliminary list of investment ideas. These are not exhaustive. We're expecting the council and the community to add, delete, amend, even when the final rulings come out in August, that we may have to do that some of these projects may not qualify or that new projects would qualify for this. And just to end on that, again, this is a positive opportunity for our community, a once in a lifetime opportunity really for our community. And we're looking forward to the positive and hearty discussion here amongst the committee members. And again, when it goes to council on the 29th. So thank you for that opportunity, Chair Perello. I turn it back over to you.
Okay, my understanding is I've just learned that there is a very specific amount that can be given with the comment from one of the public speakers, Miss Alicia Purcell, Mrs. Starr. The comment about $2 million to one person. I'd like to ask one of the staff if they could address what the rules of the road are with respect to anything going out like that. And I believe we do have a member of the staff, Deputy City Manager Sherry Klima, that can answer that.
Chair Perello, the limit in ARPA is 25,000 per staff member. So, and I'm not suggesting that we are giving that to any one staff member. That is not the proposal. That's not in the plan. But to the comment that was made, 2 million exceeds what's even allowable.
And my understanding is the staff presentation with all the staff report that's available for any member of the public to read. And if any member of the public reads it, they would find that information. Is that a fair statement, Ms. Klima?
Yeah, it's in the ARPA rules. Yes.
Which are
absolutely.
attached to the staff report. So I'd recommend Ms. Purcell go back and read and trying to, in my opinion, instead of trying to inflame the masses. Thank you very much, Ms. Klima. I appreciate that. Is there anything else you would like to add or? No?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate that we have staff sharp on their toes, ready, willing, and able to help this council. Do the council members wish to weigh in now on their concerns, questions, interesting points, very strong held opinions? Start with the Ms. Lopez. Would you start, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Perello. Thank you, Chair, for that. I think, first of all, I appreciate having this discussion and the staff work that has gone in, especially all the staff who has been tuning in and following the progress of the guidelines and the direction from the Department of the Treasury on how we can spend these funds. $59 million is a significant amount of money, and yet at the same time is not a lot of money to do everything and anything that we may want to pursue in the city. And so looking at the draft of the preliminary investment ideas that was put together by all the city staff working through this is certainly very helpful. And I've appreciated receiving some of the feedback that has come in the last couple of days from residents. I haven't been able to fully process all of that information, but it doesn't mean that it's too late. So I do encourage anyone else out there to continue to provide feedback. Given the guidelines that we currently have, the preliminary information and the recommendations from city staff that I think cover a lot of areas based on the six areas that the ARPA funds do cover, but also the diverse needs that we see throughout the city on the 6 categories. So what I want to focus on and what my takeaways from this is, what I would like to see is, and what was helpful as part of this list, the preliminary list, would be to look at items that currently do not have any alternative funding or other sources. So looking at, considering that this is a one-time pot of money that we have, let's look at possibly funding projects and needs in the city that don't have any other alternative sources. One of the other items I think would be how we can closely tie these projects to the council priorities, which I think a lot of these really fall under that, especially emergency response and public safety, looking at the response to homeless needs, and really continuing to address that. That is certainly an area that we can continuously improve on, homeless services. And the other takeaway that I had, especially with an announcement that came out yesterday on the state side from the governor's office about an investment on broadband. So I don't know if anyone on staff who is in the meeting can possibly comment if the announcement on the broadband budget bill on the state side, how that can support any of the projects that were provided or listed in the list here.
Do we have a staff member that could address Ms. Councilwoman Lopez's concern or inquiry?
Raja or Adam, are you able to do that, or is that something we'll need to bring back at the meeting on the 29th?
Yes, this is Raja. I'm the IT manager, and yes, this is something that we need to study up on and report back to the council.
Thank you. And I do I mean, this just came out like, in the last 24 hours. So didn't mean to put you on the spot, but, just wanted to make that connection that, as this list of potential projects that we can look at as a council, some of these, I think our assistant city manager mentioned, Ms. Golden, this list may change, it may grow, it may get shorter. So I do appreciate having such a, going through this process and being able to look at a variety of projects and possible opportunities that we can pursue on the city side. So those are all my comments, Chair. Thank you.
Mayor, do you have comments or concerns?
Yeah, thank you. No, and you probably heard my presentations in the last two committees, starting with the Finance Committee, is that I'm looking to focus on a couple of items here. And number one would be in the infrastructure, the wastewater infrastructure, the storm drain items to the AWPF regional storm drain item, and also the capture project, the storage and sewer diversion pilot program. What I'm looking basically is to share with you that all the storm drain projects, I think, should be involved in this whole funding project, because my understanding is that storm water projects are general fund items that we need to take care of, as opposed to the regular utility type items. And also, additionally, I'm looking at the negative impacts that happen to our household, as small businesses, nonprofits, equity focused services. And for example, then we need to look to help the downtown area, all the way up to the projects that go all the way up to Wainimi Road, which I think is extremely important. And of course, we also need to work with our Pell programs to make sure that we take care of it's a quality of life issues for our residents. And additionally, broadband, I think, is infrastructure is really important, that we need to start work in locations that come out, giving us the opportunity for our children to use the broadband infrastructure for their laptops that are, my understanding now is that most of the schools are requiring laptops, and they need to get the proper infrastructure so they can actually serve their computers. And of course, one of the things too that I like to see too is the premium pay for our essential workers. We actually helped out the grocery workers, but we had a lot of city employees, like the public safety employees, the police, the fire, the recreation employees, the library employees, the refuse collectors, the utilities collectors, workers, and numerous other individuals that worked every single day of the pandemic. And I believe that those essential workers we need to take care of them, which I think is extremely important. One of the things that I like to share is that, and it was mentioned earlier also by our assistant city manager, that to have a residence, and I think the council member mentioned it too, that the residents on the 29th give us some more input. This is really important, that we get additional input on how to actually use this $59.5 million. That's not much, but with the recommendations, I think the city manager mentioned, we can have two big projects that can take all the money. But of course, we have numerous projects that we can use this money to help out, not only long-term, especially the storm water projects, but I think it'll help in the future. And also, hopefully, we can get additional monies, as the councilwoman mentioned, if we have more broadband money from the state. But I think it's important that we help our employees. And I've always said, we're the generals and we need to take care of employees, and their employees are extremely important, whether they're public employees, private employees. We need to take care of our employees, which I think is important. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Thank you to the committee members, and we'll keep going. You've come up with other things. This is ongoing. We have time. Ms. Purcell's question wanted to know the number of employees and who the employees were and what their job was. And I think the mayor touched on one that a small point that I think is important for the general public. The employees that work for the city of Oxnard work for the city of Oxnard. We're the elected officials for the city of Oxnard. There are employees, public safety. There are situations they're expected to, high risk, and the jobs compensate for that. Refuse, same thing. But well, let's take an example. The libraries were closed, but the people that worked in the libraries were out giving food, giving shots for the vaccines, face to face with people putting themselves at extreme risk compared to what their normal job would be. And there's an opportunity to help the employees that help the city maintain operations and keep going. And so the number for the member of the public that asked, I don't know the number of people. This is a preliminary to get the feeling of the council, what they want. That information will be coming forward. And I believe your question will be asked and your question will be answered. It may not be able to be answered right here and now. And I give you all the credit in the world for asking the question, but the questions will be asked. With respect to things that have been identified by department heads as higher priorities and comments that were made, and I'll specifically take comments that were made by Councilwoman Lopez. I personally do not want to spend this money on things that we have other sources of income to spend the money on. I don't want to duplicate services. If we can stretch this money out, I would rather stretch the money out. I don't want to spend it all on a big project. $59 million. I don't care who's on the council or who's working for the public or who's sitting outside watching. That's a lot of money, a lot of money. But in the scheme of things, with the costs and what things are required to be done to operate a full service city, it's not a lot of money. It doesn't go that far. You have to maximize. You got to squeeze every penny, every nickel, and get 5 pennies out of it. And you try to get the biggest bang for the buck you can, using it as smartly as you can. The things that have been identified as number ones and number twos for the second stimulus amount were to pick and choose. I have a view, and this is my view. I'm 70 years old. Big deal. I can give a lot of gifts away and make people happy. But when I'm dead and buried, I'd rather have somebody happy down the road that didn't even know who the hell I was, because something that I was involved in to make things better. And where I'm going with that, right now, the city it has not come to the attention of a tremendous amount of the members of the public in the city. There's a serious issue with water. There's a serious issue of the sources of our future water. Some of these projects are looking at potentially taking stormwater and diverting it into sewer so it can be treated and as a feedstock. Mr. Lawrence Paul Stein often talks about a feedstock. You got to have something to go into the sewer plant to treat the material, to get the water out, to purify the water, to recharge it into the groundwater, so you got something to drink in the future. We're the only city around that has something like that. But I think that maximizing whatever efforts we can in that direction will generate something way down the road. It will also provide jobs. It will provide a lot of things. But I believe the biggest thing it will provide is some security. Because when you don't have the water, you can figure out what you're going to do. Today, I had an opportunity to attend a Rotarian club. First time I've been to one of those. And there was a gentleman speaking. He happened to be the mayor of Carpinteria. Talked about his works and stuff. And he talked about going to Mexico, being asked to go out and do some projects. And one of the problems was there was a tremendous amount of diabetes in a particular community. And they don't work on the medical part. He didn't, his group, they worked on the water. But the people wouldn't drink the water that was coming out of a lake because they were chlorinating the water at too high of a level of chlorine. When they got that straightened out and people started drinking the water, they found out that the diabetes went down drastically. And why did it go down? Because it was cheaper to buy bottled soda pop than it was to get water. Water is an extremely important component of living on this planet. The water issues are a big thing to me. The other thing along that line, it didn't get the support of the council that I'd hoped it did. There's a levee project, and the water can be two things. It can help you and it can also drown you. There's a potential that we have some safety issues, and the levee is one of them. It's not listed on here. We have activities looking at that, but I needed to voice that. One of the things that comes up in looking at this matter, there are issues that reach out throughout the city of Oxnard. And one of the issues is what is impacting and going to impact the city of Oxnard with the Channel Islands Harbor. The Channel Islands Harbor is a source, is a body of water that the drains that come off Hueneme, the city of Port Hueneme, and Oxnard empty into the Channel Islands Harbor or the Edison Canal. There is a discussion. I believe it'll be a very heated discussion. The agricultural runoff going into these drains, going into the Edison Canal is not monitored. There needs to be a monitoring put at the ends of these where these canals dump into the actual body of water. There's got to be something done to monitor that. And I don't believe it will be as costly, but I believe that that is something that needs to be looked at strongly by the city of Oxnard. Reason being, if there are other players that are able to hide what their activities are doing that are impacting a tremendous amount of the city and potentially the cost to the city and the state and the county and every resident to clean up that body of water. And they have been getting a pass for a long time by the Regional Water Quality Board. It needs to be addressed. And the way you address it is you have to test what's being put in that water. And currently, we don't have those systems in place. Those drains also come off our city streets. As I said before, if we can take that drainage water and put it in our sewer system, increasing the capacity of water that we can treat and deliver to our underground or however we work it out, because one of the problems with getting back to water, we have neighboring cities that are considering putting in the same plants that we have. And one of the reasons I'm told that the neighboring cities are reluctant to deal with us and send us their effluent to go through our plant to be treated is they don't trust Oxnard. That's because of past actions over decades with the city. I think we can work on that. But if these funds can be used to assist that, along with a lot of the other gifts that I mentioned, you could give away a lot of gifts, I'm all for it. But I don't want to lose sight on some of the things that will be long-term goals to help this community. We can bond some of those things. We have project monies that can take some of those things, and that's great. The question specifically from residents that wrote in, the PAC. The PAC is an asset, but the PAC has questionable earthquake preparedness. I support finding out how good a shape the building is before putting any more money into it. New roof, new this, new that. You don't put a new paint job on a car that's falling apart. You don't do that. The seniors and the youth services. We need to do things for the seniors and the youth. The seniors are going to be around most likely less time than the youth. They deserve a slice of pie. The youth, you still have to serve the youth, and they deserve a slice of pie too. I may be not answering the questions the way previous council members answered them, but that is how I see it. I trust my staff to have made choices, and the choices add up to a lot more money than we have to distribute. So I trust my staff to look very sharp with a sharp pencil. If we have money from other pots and pools of money to take care of those problems, there should not be money coming from this item to fund those projects. Our employees, there comes a time when you take care of the people that work for you. And helping our employees, I think it's time we take care of the people that work for us. The speaker was 100% right. They had a job. They did their job. They showed up to work. They kept their job. They got paid. Their pension went into the pension. A lot of people did not have that. I hope some of those people that did not have that, I hope their employers take care of them also. The issues with respect to some of the things that are maybe a little bit out there, swimming pool, we could do the swimming pool, but that's a big project and we could also bond that. And that will be beneficial over a long period of time. Something to kickstart Ormond Beach, get something going. I could, we all talk about it. Been on this council for a fair, now I've been on this council a long time. It's been talked about and talked about and talked about, and we still have problems and we're not moving forward with it. But the main things to help this community get over what they went through with this last COVID, and ladies and gentlemen, this COVID thing isn't over. If you watch the news, I hope some of you read the papers. You'll hear what's happening in Los Angeles. You'll hear what's happening statewide in other countries. This new variant, they're getting more and more cases, mostly attributed to people that will not take the shots because of whatever views they have. Some political, some religious, some they think they're bulletproof. Nobody's bulletproof. And I ranted there. Those are my comments on this matter. And I hope some of the council members have some other comments or things they want to add, please.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mayor.
something important was said, and I know that we had some emails from Nash and from some of the Roger and so forth, but this guy, Robert Park, sent, I think, a really important information that he has that ensure that we have adequate future water supply. And would the desalination plant be a candidate? We have thousands and thousands of gallons that are going into the ocean, but are out of our desalination plant. So I believe that maybe we need to look at some legislation and for our gray water to make it potable water, to making sure that we can use that water, and probably work with our assembly persons like Jackie Irwin and Steve Bennett, our assembly persons to help us out with legislation that can eventually help us, convert that gray water into drinking water and maybe inject it into our groundwater for certain months and so forth, so we can use that water. And because we have a tremendous amount of water from the desalination plant that's going on to the ocean. So I think we need to have legislation to hopefully help us convert the gray water to drinking water for residents, something that we might want to look at and come out with some legislation, work with Jackie Irwin and Steve Bennett, our assembly people. Thank you, sir.
Council
Mr. Chair-
member.
Yeah, thank
Go
you.
ahead.
And if I can add, because I think you have covered so many areas, in your feedback, so many areas from youth to seniors, a lot of the infrastructure issues that we have in the city. I don't think anyone on council would deny that any of those areas that you've discussed are important for they're certainly important for all of us, and that's not me speaking on behalf of any other member on the council, but I think that's just generally, we all believe in serving our community and meeting the needs of our residents, and we want to provide as much and make improvements, significant and noticeable improvements throughout the community. So I think, I think we've all said it, there's a lot more projects, there's a lot more need for funding than what we have available. And I think it's a very tough task on our staff as well to provide some of that feedback and help to narrow down and help guide us on the council as we head into the next couple of months, once the guidelines are finalized, and once it comes down to the council deciding and making those tough decisions, good decisions, I think that will be for the benefit of all our residents, and so many factors that we will need to take into consideration, especially with the projects that have been mentioned, from Ormond Beach, to the Channel Islands Harbor, to the levees, all significant projects that benefit many, if not the majority of our residents in Oxnard. And I think one of the points that I would hope can help guide the council with the help of the assistance of our staff is to find projects that can be funded. And looking at some of these larger scale projects, can we make a significant enough dent with the funding that we have to make the progress so that it's not kind of drop in a bucket? So I would hope that this funding will go a long way, that it will be used in a way that residents will see the difference, that will notice and welcome the investment of these funds in the community, whether it's to support businesses coming back, those that have been really impacted due to closures, whether it's trickling down to students in the city who have been impacted, whether it's our city staff who has had to really become flexible within their positions to fill the needs throughout the city. So I just wanted to kind of piggy off of what you've shared and acknowledge that there's all the areas that have been mentioned from both Chair Perello and Member Zaragoza are very important for all of our community and our residents.
Mr. Chair, can I add another?
Go ahead, Mayor. Go ahead.
Councilwoman Lopez just remind me that Senator Limon has been very instrumental in helping us out. I know she was an assembly person, now she's a senator. And I know she's helping us out with the aquatic center down in South Oxnard. But going back to the legislation, and I'm not sure, Councilwoman Lopez, if that is part of her purview there in Sacramento to help us with the legislation to convert the gray water into potable water, for the community, because I mean, there's just tremendous amount of water that could. If we're having this drought right now with that water, well, that'd be fantastic if we can do that. I know that Senator Limon is very instrumental in helping out and working with Irwin and working also with Assembly Member Bennett, just for information. Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, and if I can just add to that you're right. I think we need to leverage, leverage our representatives, leverage our position in the city, and work, be strategic in how we're moving forward, whether it's with these funds, or even opportunities to make changes through policy that will help the city. So I do support what you're saying.
Thank you.
Staff has. I'd like to share this for the member of the public that asked about how many employees. It looks like the employees that are being considered is about 1,329 employees. I don't know the positions and I don't know the amount, but I believe that's the number of employees for the member of the public that asked. And the other individual, when they asked about the people with the letters, they asked about the PAC and they asked about the siding and the the digital signboard. I just like to give you an example, and I use that putting a new paint job on a wrecked car. If the building needs tremendous amounts of work, equating to more money than what we have here, I would rather find that out before we spend any money on some of the other items that are being asked for, on specifically the PAC. And I do appreciate the people that are showing the strong interest. And again, I'd echo my committee members. I'm lucky to serve on this committee with these two individuals. Ladies and gentlemen of the public, this is a public forum. You have the ability to put your views on record, send an email, send a letter, make a phone call, let us know what you want to do. But please read the information that's available. Read the information that's available and know this is one-time money. The purpose is we have a budget that was balanced. We have projects and priorities that were picked. We are moving forward in that direction. This is extra that has come in to help us get through what we went through, all of us went through with this pandemic stuff. And a lot of people suffered. Some, let us not forget over 600,000 are dead.
That's right.
This is, some would say, well, you got money and you're spending it like a drunken sailor, and that's no disrespect to a sailor coming into town. But sometimes it feels like all of a sudden you got $59 million. Ladies and gentlemen, it won't go very far for all the needs that have been put off and been identified in this city. Do we have any further comments by the committee members?
Well, as mentioned before by our assistant city manager, this is a unexpected dollars, risky dollars that we need to, as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, we use them wisely. And as you mentioned again, we reiterate, we need the public input. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'd like to get a motion on this, so we send this forward to the council. Can I get a motion?
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, Madam Clerk, please.
Member Zaragoza,
Yes.
Member Lopez,
Yes.
Chair Perrello.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
The next item on the agenda is items for future agenda items. And do we have anything from the members of the committee?
No.
Okay, I see 2 no's. I do have a request. I'm getting a lot of requests for irrigation to the plants and trees and the medians. They're being cleaned up, the contract, there's tremendous amount of work, a lot of good things going on, but we're finding that the irrigation systems are not working. And plants and trees, due to the extreme hot weather that we're going through right now, and it's still really not the dead of the summer yet, get those irrigation systems up and running. And that's the only request I have. Before we adjourn, does the assistant city manager or the assistant city attorney have any comments they'd like to make?
None, thank you, Chair.
None either. Thank you.
Okay, with that, this meeting is adjourned. Ladies and gentlemen, please be safe. This pandemic stuff, it's not over. Thank you very much. Thank you for the meeting. Thank you, committee members. Thank you.
Thank you.